Welcome to Unsubscribe. I'm your host, Avani Jain. In this podcast, I'm going to show you how to intentionally opt out of anything that's robbing you of your energy, freedom, joy, and peace of mind. It's time to let it all go, finally, so that you can clear your mental inboxes and make space to subscribe to a life that truly lights your soul. If you're ready, hop in. We are embarking on the transformation of a lifetime. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unsubscribe. This is Avani, and today we're diving into big work upgrades, basically part 3 of my sabbatical learnings and experiences. And I'm excited to dive in. But before we do, I want to just catch up a little because I was thinking about today's episode and recording it. I was supposed to record it yesterday, but of course, that didn't happen. Life happened and I didn't get a chance to. And so here we are. And I've been thinking about sitting here and being in front of the mic. And honestly, I was kind of dreading it. And I was trying to think about why, because I started this podcast because I love podcasting. I love talking. I love sharing. I love learning and synthesizing what I've learned and sharing it with you. And it's like swapping notes. That's what I feel like I'm doing here, swapping notes during the experience of life. And it's fun for me. It lights me up. And at the same time, right now, I'm feeling like drained, which is ironic because I'm coming off of a sabbatical, right? But I am drained. Life has been really big and really full. And there's just been so many things pulling me in different directions. So I needed to acknowledge that, like, wow, I am doing a lot. And we'll talk about that at the end specifically because I've been grappling with what work means to me too, which is very fitting for this episode. And so life has been throwing a lot at me. So that's been overwhelming at times. And I've also felt like I'm rusty. I'm not amazing at podcasting right now. I'm feeling rusty. I'm feeling like I haven't done this in a while. I don't know how to speak eloquently anymore, which none of these things, they could be true, they could be not true. I'll let you be the judge of that. But the monkey brain was basically going off in my mind, being like, oh, you've been really rusty lately. I've been having to stop and restart in my raw, unedited versions of the podcast. So shout out to Justin and our team who helps us with the editing, the Aligned and Ambitious Studio. Grateful for you for sticking with me in all the bumps along the road. And I realize it's okay. It's okay for me to show up imperfectly. In fact, it's what is required, because then I was like, what if I just discuss that on the podcast? Maybe this is the learning. Maybe this is the thing I have to share. And maybe me saying that I'm rusty means I'm not rusty after all. No, I do think I'm rusty, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting reps in. I'm doing this. I'm showing up. And the best way to get better at something is to do it, to try it out, to experiment, to find efficiencies and get those reps in, get that practice in, because that thing that was once super scary can start to become less and less scary with each repetition, each round that you do. I'm saying reps and rounds because I've just got out of a workout, which was great, but that's how I think about these things. This is a workout for podcasting for me. And every time I get on here to share, I am getting more experience in, I'm getting better at podcasting and speaking and sharing in the way that I want to. So there's my little preamble for today. I wanted to share that with you because my goal is to be transparent. My goal is to be real and show you that you have big things to do in this world, and showing up imperfectly is the way to do it. We're never going to find that perfect moment or be the perfect version of ourselves. Trust me, I've been trying for 32, almost 33 years. It doesn't happen. So we're going to continue to show up imperfectly, and that's going to be what it is. We'll let it be what it is, and it will be perfect, and it'll land the way it needs to land for everyone else, or just for yourself. So let's dive into the work upgrades that have been happening behind the scenes while I've been out on the podcast. So at the same time I pulled away from the podcast, I pulled back on agency things at Matcha Design Labs as well. The team had a few good projects they were set up with, and I just needed to clear my plate. And so that's what I did. I've been allowing them to run these projects, and it's been going so well. Like they have been thriving with our clients. Our clients are so happy, and it makes me so happy to see our incredible team servicing them at this greater level, and me honestly just getting out of the way because I felt like I still had my hand in things that I shouldn't. And I was actually getting in other people's way, stepping on toes by doing that and causing confusion and slack and things like that. So by me stepping out of the way, it has helped them to really step up. But I want to rewind to earlier last year in 2023 and talk a little bit about where Matcha Design Labs was at that time. We had a larger team, I would say 5 to 6 to 7 people, seven-ish people, let's say. And then we had several, like 5, 6 smaller clients, maybe even more at times. I think there was a time that we had 11 different projects going on with 11 different clients, which is crazy. And it's a lot to keep track of. And when we had a big shift, I had a few key team members decide to leave Matcha Design Labs. I had to look at everything, look at all the cards on the table and say, how can I make this better for me and better for my team and better for my clients? And the answer was to work with fewer clients, but larger clients. So going out of that year and into this year, especially this summer, we had 3 to 4 clients and they were much larger projects, and everything suddenly was simplified. It was easier for me to run the agency, easier for my clients because they got better service. We had fewer things on our minds, and easier for my team, especially, which was really important so that they could run the show while I stepped back and lived my life a little bit more, went on trips or whatever it was. And that was such a big shift because I realized I didn't have to scale for the sake of scaling. I didn't have to grow for the sake of growing. Growth at all costs. That's this rhetoric that goes around in the online entrepreneurship world. We don't need that. It's actually not necessary. And after I started to look at my agency as an extension of my life and not my life as an extension of my agency or work, things started to shift for me. And so we have the smaller team, we have these incredible clients with longer contracts, and it allows our team to do better work for them. They improve their work, they give better work to our clients. It's just a win-win-win all across the board. And as I'm coming back to podcasting, as I'm coming back to what's going on at the agency, I'm realizing I don't need to operate in the way I once was anymore. And I get to choose how I come back. And I'm not going to be doing any client facing work anymore, like absolutely zero client facing work. I might check in from time to time with our team, maybe say hey to clients from time to time, but I'm not executing on any deliverables. And I'm going to continue to let my team run the show because this little 3-month experiment and experience was incredible. They did so well, and it was something that I'm just so proud of them for. I'm proud of me for letting go, because that's something that I need to continue to practice. And so that's a little update on things happening at the agency. It's been chill. It's been really wonderful to see where that beautiful entity goes and allow other people to have the limelight. The reason I can do that, by the way, is because I have incredible systems, and I am a broken record about this, but I will continue to be because it has changed my life. ClickUp, having a project management system that is organized, that everyone knows what's going on in your business. And of course, I use that for my household too, is key. I'm at the point now where I don't even need to check ClickUp anymore for work or for my household stuff, at least as much as I used to, because those systems are running things on their own. The teams know how to use the systems. They know how to plug in. They know what to check. They know what to create and what templates to use. And I'm allowing these systems to be the thing that is the heartbeat of the business. They're the arteries and the veins of the business. They send sustenance and nutrition in and out, and it's what creates results in our business, and honestly my life now as well. And I'm just so grateful to have learned that years and years ago and implemented that. So if you don't have a system for your work, even if you don't run your own business, if you work on your own, you still need a system for your work. And if you don't have a system for your household, if you live with at least you and one other person, a system is going to be game changing. I highly recommend finding one and using it. And if you don't have to use ClickUp, I use ClickUp because it's what I love for my business. But Notion has some really great systems and templates. Like, I'm obsessed with Notion. And if I was starting over, just me as a solopreneur, I probably start using Notion first now. Back in the day, I used Asana, which is another great system and tool. Trello is also wonderful. And those are the top that there's another one. What is it called? Superlist that my friend told me about. So that's another great higher end collaborative checklist kind of system, Superlist. I highly recommend checking those out. Some of them are really aesthetic and cute and a little, I guess, flashier than ClickUp is. But if you're able to plug in your household and your work into a system like this, you will be able to let things run on their own and sit back and relax just a little bit more. So let's dive into the next part of work upgrades, which is podcast changes. So we're here in the podcast episode. Unsubscribe has been so incredible this year. 2024 was the first year I started podcasting again after taking a break for maybe, I don't know, 4 years. Yeah, almost 4 years, something like that. I took a break for a while from podcasting, and Unsubscribe has been the thing I didn't realize I was missing. I love this way of connecting with all of you, and I'm ready to step it up. The first 6 months of the year, I spent a lot of time experimenting on the podcast, time and energy. I experimented with video and showing up not just on audio, but video as well. And I experimented with making reels to grow my audience. And I remember sharing that here on the podcast and talking about what I was going to create with it. Well, my experiment with the video side was fine. It went well. I think the video is really wonderful. TBD on if I'm going to keep it. I'm going to continue that experiment. But the Reels experiment didn't go as well as I wanted to. We had a great agency and they just weren't able to figure out how to make my content, my podcast episodes, my snippets, my ideas go viral. And it's kind of sad. I'm like, my shadow banned or something, but maybe it's just my content. And I think if I dig a little bit deeper, my heart wasn't into it. I can create content, I can record things, I can talk, and I know what I'm saying is really good, but behind it, my heart wasn't there. I was basically doing something someone else recommended that I do, and my enthusiasm was curbed. It was dampened and tamped. Yeah, like tamped like a coffee tamper. And it's hard to admit that I'm probably the reason it didn't work. I mean, it's important for me to admit that, but that experiment failed. My follower count is like probably the same on Instagram or less than it was before. The podcast is great. I'm going to continue that. But in terms of reels and showing up on social media, I'm going to change how that is and what that looks like and experiment with other ways to reach out and connect with more people. Because I still believe at my core, unsubscribe, the idea of opting out of what society tells us to do, how society tells us to be, is so important. This is how we're going to push into the next era of what we are, of who we are, is unsubscribing to those things that are holding us back in 2024, in today's life. And I believe in that so deeply. I know that it's a movement that needs to be talked about to share with the world. And this is how I'm going to do it, one person at a time. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to happen overnight. One person at a time. And I'm going to be showing up in different ways in front of other people's audiences in the months to come. So I'm very excited about that. And what's next? More to come because I'm figuring it out still. Like I said, this whole thing is kind of an experiment. And I appreciate all of you for being with me along for the ride. But the next part about the podcast changes I'm very, very, very excited about is another experiment. I'm going to be experimenting recording in a real studio. Oh my goodness. I found one that's less than 10 minutes from my house and the vibes are perfect. The team is great. And I can just book a 3-hour slot or 4-hour or 6-hour slot and have guests on the podcast, which is another experiment within an experiment. And I can sit down and record solo episodes as well. So I'm very excited about that. Now let's talk about those guests. As you recall, I shared that this was going to be a solo episode podcast only. And it will be for the most part, but I'm going to now reserve the right to bring in guests when I feel like it and if I feel like they're going to provide a lot of value for you. What I realized was having conversation and really learning in conversation is something that I absolutely love and I really miss. I miss that energy, that back and forth. But I needed to be selective about who I brought on the podcast. And I wasn't selective in my very first podcast. So now I am being selective. I'm only bringing guests that I absolutely, truly love and adore as human beings. And I know that you will as well. So that is how I'm moving forward with the podcast. I'm going to have guest episodes sprinkled in here and there for you to listen to and enjoy. And hopefully you'll be able to discover some incredible creators and online influencers that you can follow and learn from and connect with and continue to grow your community and learn as well along the way. So those are all my podcast experiments coming up. And I want to close this podcast episode talking a little bit about my identity and work. I was thinking about how identity used to be work for me. They were one and the same. And now it's definitely not. Like they're further and further apart. My identity is becoming something else, and my work is just a part of that, a part of who I am. And I realize I still have a lot more work to do around that because I was talking to my best friend, Alex, and I was telling her, oh my gosh, somehow the day goes by and I still have a massive to do list and so much to get done. And I sent her my list and she was like, wow, that is a lot of work to do. And I was like, really? That's interesting because most of these things were on social things that we're doing, house related things, construction related things, just non agency things, basically. And so I realized I have this belief that I'm now unpacking and working on unsubscribing to, which is it's only work if it's making money. Isn't that insane? I have this idea in my head that work equals making money. And we kept talking and Alex was like, yeah, of course, like we were brought up in this capitalistic society and in this society that's very hyper masculine. Of course, that is where your connection is with work. If it's actually work, it's creating money. And that's how I think value is created, at least deep, deep down. And now I'm realizing I need to identify that, pull it up and unpack it and create a new meaning around what is value, what is work, what is impact. And so I'm working on that. And one of the ways I'm working on that is with this podcast episode and all my podcast episodes. Unsubscribe doesn't make a cent. Every episode I record, I am actually losing money. And that's okay because it is the work I'm meant to do in this world. And that is what I will continue to do and show up to do because I'm doing it for the love of the game. I'm doing it because that's what I'm meant to do, not because it makes money. And when I can get down to something like that, then I know truly in my heart, like this is what I'm put on this planet to do. And that feels good. So unsubscribe is me unraveling and practicing work as impact, work as value other than money. And I'm excited to continue to practice that, continue to share with all of you and see where it takes me, see where it takes us, because I think it'll take us to some amazing places. Thank you all for listening in once again. And I cannot wait to see you on the next podcast episode. Love you. Bye.